by Sasan. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Okay. In search of mechanisms in cognitive science, so I'll open the floor to him. We're going to stick to the regular time slots of 20 minutes for talk, 10 minutes for questions.
Okay, I'm happy that I'm here today, and thanks for the manager, for the chair of such a conference, OZSW in Netherlands. Today I'm going to talk, as Frank said, is about the in search of mechanism in cognitive science. To be honest with you, that was a broader aim for this talk. That was the role of philosophy in cognitive science, but I narrow it down because of the 20 minutes really. Philosophy interfaces with cognitive science at least in 3 projects. Applying philosophy of science issues like explanation, reduction to cognitive science. I'm talking about this today. The second one is using results from cognitive science to illuminate philosophical questions about the mind, nature of the mental representation, consciousness, free will. That is my favorite, but I'm not talking about this today. And the last one is grounding cognitive science attempt to construct the conceptual framework and tools needed to get cognitive science off the ground. In this talk, I contribute to the first project. I will focus on mechanistic explanation. There are 2 objectives in philosophy of explanation: explanatory demarcation and also explanatory normativity. The first one is when the scientists, they distinguish explanation from other forms of scientific achievements like description, prediction, taxonomy. And the second one that here is, that we are going to focus on it, is normativity, that we need to elucidate, clarify the criteria that distinguish good explanation from bad explanation. In fact, bad is a good word, but sometimes we distinguish the incomplete and complete explanation. We will talk about that. The thesis of this talk then is to fulfill both objectives, that we need an account of explanation that incorporate both ontic and epistemic explanation. I call it modified joint account. I apply this to this approach to mechanistic explanation used in cognitive science. I told you that I had a broader aim. The philosophy took part in cognitive science from the first day that cognitive science was formed, about the late of 1950s. And I remember that George Miller and Michael Gazzaniga, when they are talking about the cognitive science and the 6 disciplines, he, in that paper, that it was very famous because they got $17 million from Harvard University as a budget, he said psychology, neuroscience, and computer are the cognitive science with 3 others. They didn't even mention the name of the philosophy. Then, philosophy has never been considered a main contributor by other 5 disciplines in cognitive, especially by the neuroscientists. And nowadays, there are some other claims from the psychologists. They don't really take seriously the philosophy. Then I claim, by applying mechanistic philosophy of explanation, philosophy of science will be seen to be a most valuable contributor to cognitive science. I hope I can persuade you to the vote. Applying both conceptions through neuroscience. Neuroscience is driven by 2 complementary goals. The first is explanation. Neuroscientists normally, they are going to know what is the brain, what is the explanation about everything that is happening in the brain. They are going to really know the structures and also the functions of those structures in the brain. But why they do that? Because they are going to control the brain and the nervous system. Why they do that? Because they are going to impair all the images, all the damages, and they want to go to construct all the damages in the brain. They are going to enhance, for example, the memory of the human being. These are the bigger aims for the neuroscientists. Neuroscience, I think, needs philosophy, however, it is vice versa. Contemporary cognitive science is a mansion with many rooms. That already we talked about 6 of them, but those I particularly addressed over here today is neuroscience, cognitive psychology, and developmental psychology. Philosophy, I think, uses this opportunity, applying mechanistic explanation, to be involved very closely with actual science and develop its position. Really, this is an opportunity, I think, for the philosophy. And what neuroscience can get from philosophy? By applying both conception of mechanistic explanation, philosophy will give deep answers to the following questions. The first one that is very important is, what is the nature of the explanations and theories developed in cognitive science? This is really important. One question would be over here by many of the people that, okay, why the neuroscientists themselves, they don't do such a thing? There are many reasons that neuroscientists, they don't do such a thing. The first would be the structure of the academic institution that they are working. The second would be the academic syllabus that they are working. They have to follow those kind of syllabus. The other that I heard from many neuroscientists, we have no time for these big questions. Then, and really they think it is better to follow those little questions, but the most important problem for them is they, for example, start from the molecular biology, genetics, or something like that in a lower level to go to the brain stuff like neuroanatomy or something. But they don't have any idea how they integrate all of these stuff together. This is a task for the philosophers, I think. That was the first question. What are the relations among the disciplines in CS? Again, there is another problem that neuroscientists really they have. I talked to many of them. Those people that they are working in genetics, they don't have any idea what is going on in neuroanatomy. I'm not joking. Really, they don't have any idea of each other. But a philosopher can integrate 2, 3, even all of these disciplines together. How, for example, I claim that philosophy could be a bridge between psychology and neuroscience. And the last one is, what are the implications of cognitive science research for general philosophy of science, that I'm not talking about them today. Okay, in what sense are mechanisms explanatory? Are they objectively real, or should they be thought of as explanatory constructs we use to interpret and understand phenomena? Perhaps they are one of the forms that understanding can take. Can we give an account of the concept that makes sense of its application across contexts that exhibit considerable ontological diversity? Mechanisms are explanatory in neuroscience and cognitive science. How? Why neuroscientists are looking for the mechanisms? Because they serve the 3 central aims of science: prediction, explanation, and control. Perhaps I can say Wesley Salmon is the father of the ontic conception in mechanistic explanation. However, Salmon was attacking the prominent and dominant idea about the deductive nomological that you know about the Hempel and Oppenheim. Then a little bit explanation, I think, for Wesley Salmon has some kind of ambiguity. Anyway, examples are good people like Carl Craver, Lyndon Dart, but the 3 first, Craver, Darden, and Macomber, also they wrote the first paper that it is very famous in the name of thinking about mechanisms. It was 2000, about 14 years ago. I will show that they are wrong, that think that ontic conception is the only true mechanistic explanation. This is what I'm going to, I hope, to persuade. Ontic conception, what is that ontic conception that all of these people, about 90% of the people, they really hitch their wagon in that situation? There are mechanisms. They think the objective explanations, they are mechanisms. Objective explanations are not text. They are full-bodied things. They are facts, not representation. They are the kinds of things that are discovered and described. There is no question of objective explanation, being right, wrong, or good or bad. They are just there. What exactly explained the car accident? The ice on the road, the whiskey, the tears that is coming from the lady and the woman that they had an argument, or the severed brake cables on the asphalt in the road, or the interpretation that the police officer is getting to the headquarters to get some penalty or send them to the court. I think the first one. In object conception, the mechanism itself explains. Mechanistic explanation involves fitting a phenomenon into the causal structure of the world. Good explanations in neuroscience show how phenomena are situated within the causal structure of the world. I agree with that. Here, explanation involves showing or exhibiting something about the causal structure of the world. The last one is the exact quotation from Karl Kraver. That was 2003, but later in 2007, 9, and 8, he changed his idea about showing and exhibiting. Those two words eliminated and removed from all of his texts till now. Why I focus on that? Because by those words, showing or exhibiting something, it means he already believed in something like epistemic conception. But now, he doesn't believe that there is anything like epistemic conception. There is only just the ontic conception. I have two counterexamples against all of these people. The first one is, scientists are interested in patterns and regularities, i.e. repeatable phenomena. Idealizing is a means for focusing on exactly those features that are constitutive of the regularity. The process of idealization is most broadly seen as a means for removing details that distract from such a focus. The best explanations of these repeatable phenomena are importantly independent of the underlying micro-level details of the full ontic conception explanation. Then we can argue scientists are interested in macro-level regularities, not micro-level details. The first premise, I have to bring some evidence. Robert Batterman at least bring 17 other scientists, and all of them they approved the first premise. Also Simon Friedman at least bring 9 or 10 other scientists that all of them they believe in this first premise. Then, by having that first one, if it is confirmed, the second, if we have exact scaling solutions to universal behavior, then we have fully explained the behavior without appealing to the full set of ontic details. 3, we can give exact scaling solutions through asymptotic idealization. Conclusion, from 2 and number 3, we have fully explained the behavior without appealing to the full set of ontic details. Another counterexample against the ontic conception, I'm not a physicist, but I love physics, but perhaps Frank can help me, because I know that. The defining characteristic of non-ontic readings of quantum state is that they reject the notion of a true quantum state of a quantum system. A quantum state it is in. Non-ontic readings of quantum states mostly embrace some version of the epistemic conception of quantum states. In fact, even we go to the history, the war between Bohr and Einstein that you know, and you're aware about that, we cannot really find any ontic structure by those things that Bohr is talking about, the Copenhagen interpretation. Then the ontic conception is not the only explanation about the structure of the world. By that way, we think epistemic conception of mechanistic explanation, the core idea is that mechanistic explanation essentially involves conveying understanding. I focus on understanding. Conveying understanding of how the entities, activities, and their organization produce the phenomenon. Remember that A mechanism is entities and activities in a well-organized situation. Also, we can say a mechanism producing a phenomenon certainly causes that phenomenon independently of us, but it is of no use to us whatsoever until we grasp that mechanism, describe it, and understand it. Then, I'm going to say they are not the same. It's not my claim. Ontic and epistemic conceptions are subject to different constraints. For example, an epistemic mechanistic explanation should be clear and comprehensible to its audience. For example, now I'm talking. While the correctness of a description of a physical mechanisms producing a phenomenon doesn't depend on whether its audience understands that description. They are also not the same because it's like, yes?
It's 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. Yeah, we are going to the end. Yeah. Less than 5 minutes. Ontic epistemic conceptions are not the same. A second important difference is that the epistemic sense of explanation allows for the imposing of normative requirements that would be inappropriate to apply to physical mechanisms. I don't talk about that. Ontic epistemic conceptions are intertwined. The two senses of explanation are naturally intertwined. In the epistemic sense of explanation is to succeed in increasing understanding of the world rather than merely making up interesting stories about that. The stories had better be describing the mechanisms in the world. And again, they are intertwined. In the other direction, as soon as we start trying to describe the physical mechanisms that produces the phenomenon, we begin to abstract, to prioritize salient details and so on, so that our description takes on some epistemic features. Let's hear conclusion. Ontic and epistemic conceptions are both eliminable. So both aims must be met to generate a successful mechanistic explanation. In the first one, the ontic conception described the causal structure of the world, and in the epistemic one, it built a model of entities, also activities, and the organization between them. That's the mechanisms. If it is right, then both epistemic and ontic conceptions are essential for mechanistic explanation. Thank you.
Well, I, for one, completely agree. Is there anyone who doesn't agree or who has any questions? Feel free to fire away.
Yes?
I have a question about one of your slides. Could you go back a little bit? Yeah, further back. Even more. I think it was your, yeah, this one. I wasn't entirely sure what you meant with exact scaling solutions. Could you try to explain that?
Yeah, it's an example by Batterman in the highly idealization of mathematical models. Mm-hmm. This is that. And then there are a lot of mathematical formulation that I couldn't really bring it over here. It was 1 page and a half. But that idealization is accepted. This is very important for me. I mean, the first sentence, the first premise is very important, that is widely accepted by at least 26, 27 scientists. Not all of them are mathematicians. Many of them, they are the actual scientists, I mean in physics. Okay? Yes, please.
Yeah, I also have a question about this slide. Yeah, so the one we were just on.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are people in neuroscience who really challenge the idea of mechanistic explanation per se, right? And I think actually that Batterman and the people talking about this kind of scaling solutions, they would say, well, I mean, these kind of abstract mathematical idealizations, they explain in virtue of some abstract dynamical properties, and not so much in virtue of kind of the mechanistic implementation of what brings about this phenomenon. So they would give a kind of explanatory priority to the dynamical mathematical structure, and would say, well, only secondarily do we need a mechanistic explanation of that. So would you then say that these people are kind of, this is kind of in tension with how people like Craver talk about mechanistic explanation, where they say something only explains if it reduces back to the mechanism. So would you say that these people still talk about mechanistic explanation, or are they talking about something else?
No, definitely they are talking about mechanistic explanation, but the epistemic conception. Yeah, that was very good, and it showed that you know the area exactly. But for me, William Bechtel is somebody that always is in the side of the epistemic conception. Okay, he's showing all the idealization by the mathematical models, by the diagrams, by even the computational models, and even nowadays we have physical models. It means like the robot. Then those kind of robots, they are showing exactly the structure of the world, but they are not mechanistic explanation in the version of ontic conception. This is one reason. The second one, I really watched Carl Craver interview more than 10 times. In 2 or 3 parts of that interview, it's about a year ago, but last night, again, I watched that. He's telling to the girl, the colleague that has the interview with her, when she's asking her, do you really think everything in the structure of the world would have something like the ontic conception? He said, of course not. There are many explanations that we should just understand them. Idealization and that mathematical models exactly he is talking about. Then even Carl Craver, by the real life, he doesn't believe everything has a structure in the world. Then epistemic conception, really, we need that. The third reason is anything that you are doing now, right now, I'm here, you, Frank, all of us, we are using our brain. I don't mean that we don't know anything about the brain. We think we know. But what is going on in the brain is abstraction. We are doing a lot of abstract over here. What is this? Even when I'm going to say something about this really very simple machine, I have to abstract that for you. We don't know really about the colors and what is going on in the occipital lobe, in frontal lobe, temporal lobe. A lot of things are involved. But the last reason, I'm finished by this, because you said, I know you are familiar with this area. Because of that, I'm explaining more. There is a very good example in mechanistic explanation that is LTP, long-term potentiation, that you are familiar with. That is about the memory. The problem with that really example is about 1950s, there was a guy in the name of H.M. Patient that perhaps you know about him, some of you by nodding. I got it that at least 4 people they know about him. H.M. till 2008, his name was not revealed for anybody. Always they say H.M. What now we know is Henry Mollison, okay? The guy that was a neurosurgeon that removed his hippocampus was Dr. Scoville, William Scoville. It's different with Michael Scoville, the prison break. When he did such a thing, why he did? Because he thought by removing the hippocampus, epilepsy would be gone. He successfully did the surgery, and it happened. There was no epilepsy for H.M. But about 2 years, it lasted that a lady in the name of Dr. Brenda Milner noticed that there is no memory for this guy. No facts, no events. He doesn't remember anything after the surgery. Then, the relevant explanation is very important. Yeah, it happened that epilepsy is gone, but the guy really lost everything in his life. The sadness over here that he has a girlfriend. Every day the girlfriend was going to see H.M. with the flowers, and every single day he said, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. He doesn't remember that who is she. Then the explanation about that was both of them. Ontic conception, that you know about the how something happened in long-term potentiation, there is no time. But yeah, when we go to the hippocampus, there is the first is the dentate gyrus, and then CA3, and then CA1. We know something about if you cut my both hands, and this is the axon, and these are the dendrites. Just let me show you. If this one is going to, when you read something, for example, last night or today, you read something, okay? This is the neuron that is going to say hello, okay? We call this presynaptic neuron. The second one is?
Postsynaptic neuron.
Exactly. Yeah, postsynaptic neuron. They are going to meet each other, but there are a lot of problems over. This is explanation that we need to know exactly what is going on. When they are going to meet each other, there are a lot of problems. There is two receptors over here. One is NMD, that it is the first receptor. The second one is AMPA, AMPA. The AMPA is open, would be opened by the first reading that you have. Yeah. What is going on is a glutamate is going to open the door from the first receptor, and the door would be open. Then you have a little bit memory, okay? But the other one is closed. What is going on? There is a magnesium over there, and it's very strongly is over there, and it's not going anywhere. But by reading again and repeating, and tomorrow and a week later, there would be a lot of ions that they have positive bars, calcium and sodium. They are going by the AMPA over there, and they push magnesium out. This is the meaning of when you learn, your brain is changing. Why I said this? Because the LTP, long-term potentiation, for 23 years, because we didn't have a good explanation about that, it was thought that it is the reason for epilepsy. But it was not true. Scoville, the doctor, the neurosurgeon, he was good, but he doesn't know anything about that explanation. I hope you are a little bit satisfied by these answers. Any? Yes?
Yeah. Thanks for the talk. It was great. Can I see your conclusion?
Yes.
Right, so this question could be motivated by naivety, but the integration of epistemic and ontic conceptions of mechanistic explanation may not, or at least it seems to me that it may not do the job you require of, right? So you can say that you can give an epistemic conception of a mechanism, and that can have a utility function, right? So it can help me to understand how the computer works, or how the tiger hunts against the elk, whatever it does. And so in that sense, it's useful. But so how does integration work when it comes to understanding reality, right? So the way that reality is structured, right? So in some sense, you can say, well, the ontic conceptual mechanism gives you an account of reality in itself, right? It's the structural nature of reality. But perhaps, yeah, the epistemic account can help us to understand it, so it's kind of subjective. But I wonder, so how the integration of the two seems to be problematic, right? Because on the one side you have reality as it is, on the other side you have pragmatic utility conception of how we can understand reality. But see, those two don't seem to integrate, so I mean, their compatibility doesn't seem straightforward to me in the way
Yeah, that's a good question. It's really complicated even between the big names. But when we are talking about the explanation, we have to really notice about many other things that I couldn't have it over here because of the time. One of them is mechanistic explanation is against a lot of things that I couldn't talk about. For example, mechanistic explanation is against the reductionism, any version of that. Mechanistic explanation is also against many other scientific explanations. For example, the unification is by the creature, or Hempel, Oppenheim, and many other, Churchland, this kind of Michael Friedman. All of these scientific explanations now, when mechanistic explanation is coming, is telling us that I am the best explanation in all over the world. But here we have something that integration, I'm not sure that it's a good way, that I didn't use that word over here, did I? No, because this is my conclusion. Integration, you know, I said that in one of the slides because of something. I said integration between philosophy can integrate